welcome everyone to episode 2 of the Established Facts, now with Darth Maul. Last show, we talked about our house rules, and the established fact that we have nailed down is, we're all cheaters, and house rules allow us to cheat legally.
Yay.
As we work our way through the show this evening, we have a couple of topics that we're going to hit on. Our versus topic for this evening is digital versus analog dice. I'm very quickly going to let the guys and lady introduce themselves so you know who's all here. Starting to my right.
Anton?
This is Jeremy. I also go by Ragar.
This is Deb, or Dr. Deb, if you so prefer.
This is Josh.
This is Don.
And I am your host. I am Mike.
This is Derek out in the wilderness of the East.
And again, Derek is joining us via satellite. So, what do we think, guys? We're going to open it up, just plow right through this. The versus topic, digital dice versus analog dice. As the technology continues to increase and as the weight of books continue to increase, gamers have found things like the iPad and the other various electronic devices used to house electronic dice to be a viable option. So we're gonna talk about that this evening and what that brings to gaming, what that brings to the randomness of rolling dice, kind of just of our opinions on this matter. So we're gonna shoot around the table here, and we're gonna start over here with Tony and let him just kind of give you his quick opinion on digital dice versus analog dice.
Well, for me, it's going to definitely be analog dice because you can never create a true digital random.
I'd have to agree with him.
Analog, all the way.
I'm going to feel torn on this one because I prefer to use analog, but I've never been against digital.
Good way of walking right down the middle there.
You know, last show you did the same thing.
That was Derek, I thought.
No, Derek did as well, but Josh said that when you were talking about house rules are
depending on the
acceptable depending on the
situation.
situation.
That's right.
Don, what do you think?
I'm going to say physical dice or analog dice for those of you who have referred to them as such.
You just had to put physical in, didn't you?
Yes, because it's not...
Always has to be physical, doesn't it?
It has to be. For me, it's all physical.
TMI,
Let's get
dude.
Physical.
Derek?
TMI.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm coming hard down on analog dice because you can't punish digital dice.
Yes!
That is not true. You can close the application.
Yeah, but that's not true punishment. That's just putting them to sleep.
That's true. I'm a hardline supporter for analog dice. So this topic here seems to be kind of one-sided. Josh, why don't you try to stand your ground and tell us why you support digital dice?
I'm not against the digital dice end of it because I know that in some situations, especially I being a tablet user and am getting the PDFs of the different role-playing games and so forth put on the thing so it's all in one location. You don't have to carry around dice. You won't have to lose dice. And also being a software developer, I know that random generation is getting more and more accurate, but as many have said, it's very true that you're never going to actually nail down probability because that's the point. It's supposed to be random. There may be a pattern that could possibly be duplicated, but in the end, it's not nearly as random. But being in the computer industry, knowing how close they're getting, I don't have a problem with them because they're close enough now to not be completely weighted in the favor of the player, because I know many times myself with digital dice, I've gotten my rolls of 1, 4, 3 many times in a row, and I have punished by closing the application my dice and went to another dice application. So,
Derek, as an experienced game master, what do you feel about digital dice as far as from behind the GM screen? What is that? What kind of flexibility does that give you, or what kind of obstacles does that put in front of you?
It certainly cuts down on the amount of weight that you have to carry around with you. I mean, individual dice don't weigh that much, but when you get like a whole bag full, I mean, if you, especially around a con, it can get quite annoying sometimes, especially if you have like metal dice like I do. Honestly, it doesn't really bug me. The only thing that really concerns me is just the random factor and the lack thereof in software. Other than that, I think it's also a visceral thing where you can actually physically roll the dice and see it roll on the table. I think for some reason that is just very cool for me, especially when you're rolling a lot of dice at one time, like a bunch of d6s when you're hitting a fireball, or when you're rolling like a dragon's attacks, and being able to do that, just physically see that on the table is actually sort of kind of cool.
Jeremy, you have something you want to add to that?
There's one thing that I can think of that really benefits digital dice. I'm personally for physical dice, but I have a really bad tendency of rolling and then it falls off the table, and then I have to go around digging for it.
So the inevitable dice hunt is adding credibility to our digital brethren in the dice department. Tony,
For me, well, excuse me. For me, one of the big things with rolling physical dice or analog dice over digital dice is the feeling you get from succeeding hardcore, rolling natural 20s and stuff like that. I don't really get it. I've used digital dice in the past, and you don't really get that feeling off of a digital dice as you do with analog.
so maybe it's the actual connection between gamer to its dice.
Right.
Donald.
I know that kind of bouncing off of not only what Derek had to say, but also what Jeremy and Anton have had to say about physical dice. I am personally a huge advocate of being able to roll multiple d6s when I sneak attack with a rogue. There's just something about that feeling. But also, as having run a few of my own games, I feel like there's a level of integrity that you get out of playing with physical dice versus possibly playing with digital dice. Not saying that everyone cheats, but as we discussed last week, house rules can allow cheating, and
We're all cheaters.
that's right, we're all cheaters. Sorry.
We are.
As we discussed last show,
We're
I
going to totally
apologize.
turn away
Yeah.
all the game masters that would want to run for us doing that.
Well, I'm just thinking. I can roll multiple d20s on a digital die roller on my computer and pick the highest result, or I can roll one d20, because if I grab 6 d20 and roll them and pick the highest one, my DM's going to look at me and go, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, seriously.
So, I don't know.
I will have to be the devil's advocate on the topic here. I think some of the really neat avenues that digital dice have opened up are like gaming in areas where maybe you have a wife or a loved one is sleeping in the other room, and the sound of dice clanking on tables and whatever. That could be a little disturbing. It gets loud. Not to saying that the natural game progression doesn't get loud, because I know when we role play and we do things.
Oh, yes.
I mean, if you can see the group that I'm looking at, we got some loud people here. But that doesn't help when you have metal dice that you're clanking against a wood table, or God forbid a metal table. That just
But what
doesn't.
about talking? I mean, you have to talk to each other, so I don't know how that's any different. Like, if you take away the sound of dice rolling versus unless you guys are like texting each other, which would just be very weird.
We've done that.
Well, in the same room.
Yes.
Well, actually, technically, yeah, I guess we have. So, but not for the entire game. So,
Well, one thing I'd like to add is for board games, things like Monopoly or Monopoly is a good one, actually. Playing it online, it really feels like the dice or whatever number generator they're using consistently rolls the same thing. If you roll one double, you're very confident that you're going to be landing in jail because you're going to get 3 in a row. But it is a good marketing avenue for board games like Trouble or some of those old things to revamp the system and then bring you in with, hey, we now don't have any dice. On-the-go Yahtzee games, for instance. It's good to have in a car because, I mean, that's not an ideal situation, obviously, but...
Not everyone is comfortable with rolling d20s in a shoe. Not that we have anyone that does that on their way to Georgia, but Deb, what do you got over there?
So as the most recent gamer in this group, I have to say it kind of felt like a rite of passage to me. I remember when I bought my first set of dice, and it was actually at GenCon a few years ago, and it was just, I don't know, I just got this incredibly cool feeling. These are my dice. And, you know, even when they didn't behave correctly and they did need to be punished, there's still just this sense of possession. These are mine. You know, don't touch. You know, my fiance, husband, don't, no, these are my dice. You have yours. You know, there's very carefully held lines here. And so I don't think you get that with an electronic media. I mean, when we've rolled, we'll have a, you know, iPad between us and we'll each roll and whatever. It's not that same connection. So I think it's a rite of passage for gamers that we've had for several decades now of these are our dice and there's that bond between us.
Well, I'll put a similar note on that, saying, though, that if you own your computer, you have a tie to your computer as well if you've had it for a certain amount of time. I agree. My dice are my dice. I've had the same dice for quite some time now. I agree that there is a connection with those that will never be matched. It sounds so bad. But no, everyone knows their own dice. But there is, you know, people feel comfortable with their computers as well. That's a devil's advocate point. I'm not saying I agree, but they could.
Donald, let him have it.
I was going to comment not only on the weight issue that I think we were talking about earlier, but when it comes to like it being an inconvenience to carry a set of dice. I mean, what I like to do a lot of times, especially when I think we're going to talk about GenCon later on, and when I go to GenCon or when I go to any con or when I go to a friend's house to play, unless I'm going to be running with people, I usually bring a set of dice. I have a specific set for each particular character, which brings me to another point. There's something about being able to, at one time I used to buy a new set of dice for every new real character that I was going to be playing. I would go, you know, to the local game store and get myself a new set of dice. I still remember the first set of dice I bought for myself. And so there is something about having that power in your hand of what's going to happen when you roll these dice. You know, it's kind of like, as silly as it sounds, it's kind of like in Harry Potter where you feel like, you know, the wand picks the wizard. Yes. You feel like the dice picks the character. And I think other than the fact that a digital D4 doesn't hurt nearly as bad when you step on it versus a physical D4, I mean, I think that there's just something about that texture, that feeling of having that. And you can buy, I mean, I have a set of dice that are like, I don't know, 3mm dice. Like, they're just so tiny, and I mean, they don't weigh anything, you know. So, and I understand that when you start carrying around multiple sets of dice, or when you carry around special dice that you got that are metal or whatever, I know they've got like precious stone dice, which are pretty cool, but you know, those can definitely get weighty. But I think that definitely picking your dice would definitely be an advantage.
What do you got there, Derek?
Well, Don was talking about having dice per character. There are also special dice that you get either at cons or maybe even a gaming group makes dice, and being able to use them is very special because it connects you back to those memories and that sort of thing. I know this is going way off field, but I mean, like right now I'm looking at my Fear the Con 2010 die. Die 6 right here, and when I roll, I like to roll these dice. I like to roll the dice that my gaming group in New York made up, more than just normal D6s, because it has a special connection. So, and you just don't get that with digital dice. So
one last thing I'd like to add to this topic is Don had mentioned using really, really tiny dice. For some older generations, that would be really difficult to see. something about digital dice is you could go through and just say, I want to increase the font. Or for the visually impaired, you could say something like, read the dice off to me. That's an avenue I hadn't actually considered before, but that's an interesting direction that we could take that.
So I'm going to wrap it up here, and we're going to move on. Tony's got one thing he's going to add real quick, but all I'm going to say on the topic is, for those of you who use digital dice, if you can tell me when you downloaded your first app of digital dice, I will appreciate you, because I can tell you when I bought my first set of dice. And there's just that connection. Tony, what you got?
The only thing I would have to say is the best probably instance of digital dice is long distance, because DMs can see, especially if you're using an app, DMs can see the dice you roll wherever they are. So that's probably the only thing where I would say that where I would prefer to use digital dice is when you're doing something over a long distance.
Right on. I'm gonna move right into our main topic this evening. Derek made mention that there are special dice that tailor from cons or from gaming groups or from each person has their own set of dice. I know this year at GenCon had their set of dice out. Unlike past years, they didn't hand out the D6 to everyone like they did. But if you went and looked for it, you could find the GenCon set of dice this year. We're gonna talk about some things about GenCon and the actual event and things that we experienced and the time we spent there, kind of our expectations, and anything that you would kind of like to see different for next year. But we're going to tackle these one at a time, because GenCon is a 4-day event, and we can't expect to wrap up someone's feelings or thoughts on a 4-day event in 25 seconds. So we're going to talk about real quickly, just we're going to go around the table here, and just how much time did you spend at GenCon this year, and then how much time did you spend getting ready to go to GenCon? Tony, why don't you start us off?
I spent 3 of the 4 days there. I slept the 4th day. I probably prepare for GenCon a week in advance. That includes buying my ticket.
For me, I start pretty much as soon as you can with the pre-ordering. But in terms of actual preparation, maybe a total of 3 hours, just going through the catalog, really. At the event, I had probably 7 events. If you said that was 4 hours, 28 hours total worth of gaming.
How long did you actually spend downtown? How long?
Oh, all 4 days.
All 4 days. Deb?
Well, in regards to the preparation, Josh actually does the majority of our preparation online. He gets us all set up beforehand. So I actually didn't do much. I just passed the buck to my husband, which was very nice. So me personally, preparation, maybe an hour to make sure my character was ready. Now, the amount of time I spent, I think I'm about at 3 days, maybe 3.5. I wasn't able to be there for the first half day on Thursday because of work. So 3.5 days.
Well, I was down there 4.5 days, actually. We went down Wednesday night first. We spent the whole time there. We came back Sunday afternoon. Preparation time, I'd easily say a week, maybe week and a half. And the only reason I say that much time, and it's more like a week's worth of work days, so more like 4 full days or something like that, because just searching for events, planning the events, getting everything paid for, and then also contacting all the other friends we were going to be meeting up with at certain times so we could find places to get together, know where everyone's going to be. I kind of headed up a lot of that this year. Had a great time doing it, for sure, but yeah, I'd probably say about a week's worth.
Donald?
I only got to spend about 3 or 4 hours at GenCon this year.
Tell everybody why.
As we talked about on the last show, my wife was pregnant when we had our last show, and she is no longer pregnant. We have a new little boy. He'll be 3 weeks old on Monday, which at this date is the 15th. So Monday the 15th, he will be 3 weeks old. So I had a brand new baby. I had to prepare for that that whole event. To prepare for GenCon, I think mentally I prepare for GenCon the day GenCon ends. Because honest to goodness, and my wife can tell you this, every year we walk out of the convention center, and I look at my wife and I say, "You know what I can't wait for?" And she goes, "What's that?" And I said, "GenCon." We just left. Yeah, I know, but there's just some, I don't know what it is. It's like a 4-day holiday. It is just, I get so, I guess, pardon the pun, but I get so geeked up about Gen Con. There's just something about it. The environment, the fact that you get to hang out with gamers from everywhere in the world. I've met several people from Europe, and a couple people from Asia, and actually a couple people from Australia over the few years that I've gone. And I love it. I mean, I mentally prepare probably all year. Physically preparing, obviously, the days that I go, there's a lot of things I have to do. Having a family, I got to make sure we got the diaper bags packed and all the food and strollers and stuff like that. So that probably takes me a few hours. But I mean, I spend all year getting ready for Gen Con. It's awesome because I come up with costume ideas and all kinds of stuff.
So what you're saying is the husband has to take responsibility almost every year for the con.
No, what I'm saying is I voluntarily take the reins when it comes to Gen Con because, I mean, my wife loves going to Gen Con, and the first year that I went was the first year that she went, so we have the fortunate opportunity to have gone for the last 6 years, which is pretty awesome. I've actually been married less time than the amount of time I've gone to Gen Con, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, I mean, it was definitely... And in regards to something that Debbie said earlier, I just want to, congratulate Debbie for actually being able to go to Gen Con for more than, a day this year, because she usually doesn't have any time at all. So now that she's a real doctor, she doesn't have to worry about a school schedule anymore.
Just work.
Just work.
Just work, yeah.
Just work.
So Derek... it's to my understanding that Gen Con is a love-hate relationship with you.
Yes, it is. I actually start in December to put together what games I'm going to schedule because you have to actually submit those in January, February time frame. I buy my badge in January. I'm also in charge of the hotel, so dealing with that reservation in January. Then, of course, pre-regging for events, and then right around June and July, my life ends, and it's all about Gen Con for about a month. So
that's awesome. I can't imagine spending that much time for 4 days, but I guess in the end, it all kind of works itself out.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I was there also all 4.5 days. So I get there Wednesday, and I left Sunday afternoon. So
I, much like the rest of my compatriots here, I spent about 4 days down there. I really wasn't sure whether I was actually going to be able to go to Gen Con this year or not, up until pretty much the last minute. So I really have almost zero planning or preparation this year, which is not unlike any other year that I plan to go, because I really enjoy the freedom to just walk around and jump into stuff and spend a lot of my time in the exhibit hall and that kind of stuff. But I would say overall, probably about the 12 minutes I stood in line to buy my badge was all the preparation I needed. So, of course, the lines and the people and the mess that is Gen Con, minus those things, what are the other big highlight events from this year that just really stood out? I'm gonna say that real quickly. I know the biggest one for all of us was here in Indianapolis. The city has revamped and tore up and now reopened a new portion of our convention center, and I would probably have to say that our convention center is probably 3 times its size. So for me, real quickly, and I'm sure everyone will attest to this, that not only is there more room, there's more people, there's more events, and
Longer line.
and you took the words right out of my mouth
Will
because
Oh.
more people, more room, and more events equal longer lines. So
Well, some actual data on that is 36,000. I think it's somewhere around 36,000 badges were sold beforehand, and 118,000 people came in and out over the course of the 4 days that it was going on, which is like a 20% increase over
I
the
saw
last
those
year.
numbers.
It's ridiculous.
It's
So
amazing.
awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Derek, I don't like sticking you last all the time. What was your
Okay.
most memorable moment this year at Gen Con?
I actually have to say it's not a Gen Con event. It was actually the Star Wars game that we played in the night prior to the actual official Gen Con games. That was really my highlight. Just to see Josh's character just go total black evil just made my day. Anyway, so what I'm talking about is we're playing a totally evil Star Wars game that a person who is our GM is remote, but he was there for Gen Con, so we got to meet him in person. Or actually, I got to meet him in person for the first time, and he ran for us in our hotel room, and it was fantastic. So yeah, that was definitely the highlight.
So Don, in the 12 seconds that you got to look in the
no
exhibit
joke.
hall of your 3 hours
Yeah.
after standing and coming on Sunday and getting your badge and your family badge and whatnot. So literally, in probably what felt like the 12 seconds you were in the exhibit hall, what really was the highlight of your time there?
Well, fortunately, I got to spend about 2 hours total. But it did feel like, compared to 4 days of attending that I normally do, it did feel like about 12 seconds. Because I caught the last 2 hours that the exhibit hall was open on
You
Sunday.
got through, what, a third of it?
I whatever was in the area that I walked into with the Wizards sign and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know how much more there was. I heard it was huge, but then I was talking to my wife later on, and I was like, it didn't feel as big as everybody was talking, but I think we probably missed about 2/3 of it. So, I would say the most memorable thing for me, I actually knew one of the authors in Authors Avenue, at the show, and so it was really cool for me to actually get a chance to see her and talk to her. I had talked to her when she did one of her first book releases, and she's from here in the 8th sector of Vulcan, wherever we are. I don't know. Sorry, silly inside joke we were talking about earlier. But yeah, Authors Alley was really cool, and then I always enjoy if you haven't gotten a chance to see the Mayfair booth on Sunday afternoon, like an hour before the exhibit hall closes, they give away a bunch of stuff if you actually go through and you accomplish all their ribbon tasks where you go and demo a bunch of their games and you get a bunch of stuff. And that you can hear, because when whoever is doing the hosting for the ticket pulling, whenever they yell a number, the entire crowd around him repeats the number, and so it's like he'll say 5, and the whole crowd will be like 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, and you can hear it from the entire exhibit hall, and it is just so fun just to watch like a mass of like 70 to 100 people just standing around this Mayfair booth where people are trying to demo Settlers of Catan and Settlers of America, and they're like, "Oh, I can't move." But it's very. That was probably one of my most memorable for this year, and obviously taking my entire 4-member family was definitely a memorable point. Again, my son was only 2 weeks old, so
Getting them started young.
That's right. I think next year we might actually buy my what will be 3-year-old his first set of dice, but of course they'll be like huge, so that he doesn't decide to.
I guess you're
Eat them.
like Jeremy in our last show is you're starting Daniel off gaming in the womb.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was the same way with my first son. Like,
That's good.
Yeah, and the funny
That
thing
is not good.
No, the nice thing is it's very easy for me to help my son learn how to count when I can take a set of dice out. As silly as that sounds, as funny as that might sound, you take a D4 out and you go 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, he can almost verbatim count to 10, and he's not 3 yet. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's very, very cool.
Take that, Fisher Price.
That's
right.
have to help with.
You ain't got nothing on Chessex.
That's right.
You said that you went to the Authors Avenue and stuff like that.
I did.
It was really awesome where they placed Authors Avenue and the artists, which was right in the center of the exhibit hall.
I agree.
Instead of like stuck in like a corner, like a bad kid or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was so many people that were just wandering around. It was really cool to see that because that was new this year. So I hope they continue to do that.
I definitely agree. I think that we actually have a couple friends of ours who've written books and stuff and been there at Authors Avenue, and I totally agree. I feel like, though, as a gamer, sometimes you might feel like, oh, well, there's this Authors Avenue right in the middle of where I want to go. It's nice because it actually gives you an opportunity to meet some of those authors, and really, it's like 4 aisles. If you want to walk around it, it's really not huge.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
But it's a very convenient spot for the artists and the authors and stuff like that. And so I know I see a lot of the same authors year after year after year. So it must be growing in popularity, which is really nice. So
that's cool.
Josh.
Well, for me, I had a bunch of them, but I think I can sum up most of it in
A Blood Rage?
That was Saturday, but it had nothing to do with the game.
Make sure there's no fires around.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Wait, that was Wednesday night too. Yeah, when my Wookiee went crazy. But I'd have to say advertising is a great way to kind of sum it all up because over the course of the week, we got to pass out cards for the established facts. People were able to get linked up, hopefully, and listen to the podcast a little bit more. And in the process, we met a publishing company that's based out of Evansville, Silver Crescent Publishing.
That was pretty awesome.
They were really good.
That is probably the most memorable moment for me because they actually took the opportunity, and on Thursday when we met them the first time, they're like, dude, if you're interested in seeing what our campaign setting has to offer, we'll run a game for you tomorrow night. We'll meet up with you wherever you want, and we'll run a game for you. And Derek, I know you're getting you've got your first module out, and I'm going to try and put a link up for that so people can download it and make that available. You got to play test yours, so of course we got to play around with your module. Then we got to meet the Silver Crescent folks, and we have another thing that really made my weekend, but that's going to be more of a surprise for later. I'll leave that one. Hopefully for a later situation, but definitely meeting the publishers and connecting and networking with people. As much fun as it was playing games, just learning, how much these people are trying to, to push the gaming industry, everything around. There's a whole network of folks out there that are trying to get RPGs, video games, all these out there, so they're not so, I wouldn't say discriminated against, but I mean, everyone relates a nerd and a geek to the gaming industry. But I mean, I know my wife's a doctor. Okay, I'm a computer guy.
Your wife's a nerd.
Well, I know she is, but
I am.
It's very you're seeing all
nerds.
types of people come into these, and it's really cool to see industry folks that are of all types of people as well. So that really made an impact on me.
I like how
those people were just amazing. They really were. So
I like how they threw out 36,000 copies of Rift in the grab bag.
Yeah, $40 game.
Gave it away.
Yeah, I got 3 of them.
I got 2.
Yeah.
Deb, why don't you give the intellectual doctor's perspective of what was the highlight of GenCon?
Okay. No pressure. Okay. I'm trying to think of the highlight for it, and the problem is, because it was brand new for me, the whole thing was amazing because, honestly, my gaming group has been the primary place that I play games, and I see it in this small kind of bubble, these group of people that I play with on a regular basis. And so to begin to see how gaming is important literally all over the world, and all of these very unusual ways of expressing gaming. Everything from the minis all the way to regular board games to video games to music. There was this random song playing how people still play D&D, and it was like this weird funky, I don't even know what the kind of music was, but it's going on and it's right by these dice, and I'm going, there's music about people playing D&D? Holy crap. Okay. So it was great to know that I'm not the only one, and I know that sounds silly. Of course I'm not the only one, but you see how big it is and how important it is. It's a livelihood to a lot of these people. So that was amazing. But my most favorite moment at GenCon was probably when I was involved with something I didn't even think I was going to be involved in before I went to GenCon, and that was playing this enormous game of ridiculous. It's called the War Game, World War II. It's huge, literally, largest board game in the world. And I didn't think I was going to play. I wandered over to see my brother because he's totally into it. And I just got absolutely fascinated by this game. And so I actually ended up spending all of Friday playing in this tournament. And I actually got props because I was the only girl that was playing that game. And even there were guys dropping out because it's a long game. And I stuck it out all through the day. And we get to the end and they're like, you're the only girl that has even shown any interest in this game whatsoever. And, and I actually got a couple of high fives from the guys. So I just kind of had this little, little pride moment because I'm like, you know what? I'm a girl and I can hang with guys in a war game, a World War II game. So, so kind of give myself a little props for being able to do that.
I think she's geeking out.
Yeah.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, it was so cool. I love World War II, and this game rocked.
So is it not my understanding that that game also holds the Guinness Book of the World Records, Deb?
You are correct. It
For
is
what?
For the largest board for a board game in the world. If I remember, it is 39 inches by 77 inches.
Oh my god!
Do we
It's
have
huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
Do we have a weight associated with that?
Well, part of the rite of passage to be able to come up and hang out was you had to hold the box that the game is in, and I think that it weighed 24 pounds. Oh, it's over 20-pound box by the time you take into the the miniatures and the board and everything. And another geeky moment, you roll D12s in this game. And so tying it back to our dice comments here a little bit earlier, there were some times when I had rolls where I was rolling 11, I think I even had like 15 D12s at one time. Oh, I was having such a geek moment. I'm like, I am rolling 15 D12s right now, and I can hear them all rattle and just let them go. It's so cool. I never would have had that kind of a buzz with digital dice. I'm sorry.
However, I will make note, watching you play that game did give me a great idea for anyone who does use a lot of dice and uses a board map. This guy created this contraption that puts the box of the game in like a metal frame about 4 inches above, so you can put it right on top of the board game, and it's got felt on the bottom of it, so you just roll the dice in it, so it doesn't go all over the place. So I thought that was a brilliant idea.
Especially with a board that big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a brilliant idea. So.
Well, minus the fact that we could all eat lunch in France, the size that board was.
Yes.
But
Without buying a plane ticket.
right,
Woohoo!
4 people could eat in Russia.
Yes, that's true.
Jeremy, why don't you tell me what your highlight of Gen Con this year was?
Honestly, I think I'm just going to be appreciative of the event itself. Like I had said previously, all of my events ended up getting sold out. But it turns out that was okay because just friends, people I met there, I had all of my games essentially just free, or somebody volunteering, like, hey, do you want to join this game, or we'll run a game for you. Just give us a time, and it was that was the part I enjoyed most about it, was the socializing with people and really just having a chance to enjoy 28 or whatever hours of gaming without actually going in with a plan.
See, sometimes not planning works out well in your favor.
Indeed.
Tony, as a master not planner,
Oh, yeah. I bought 10 generics. I have 8 left.
All right.
Should have totally returned those.
I was gonna say you can return those.
I,
Well, you could have.
it didn't go
Can't
Sunday.
now.
It didn't go
Oh,
Sunday.
good call.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I slept Sunday, but for me, my most memorable moment is actually 2 things. It's a split between Derek's game and the game that Ben ran for us from Silver Crescent Publishing. and it actually revolves around Ben because it's Ben's character that he played.
Urkbar.
Urkbar. Oh my god.
What a headache.
Oh yeah.
What was he? Was he half orc or orc?
He was half orc.
Okay.
He was half orc.
Half orc where? Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, and no, he was a half orc were-tiger.
Oh, were-tiger. My apologies.
Yeah. So, but it was just the entertaining playing in Derek's game and just the hilarity that ensued from all that, and then going and having him run a game for us, and the hilarity that ensued from that game. But the only other thing that is truly memorable is Saturday's ballistic Wookiee.
That was Wednesday.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Wednesday's ballistic Wookiee then.
So, my most memorable moment of GenCon happens to be sitting in the same room with me. However, she is not mic'd and she does not have headphones, but she's okay with me talking about her. I got to take my beautiful wife to GenCon for the first time, and as she put on her social media network that she likes to use, that she could never have found it in herself to be going to GenCon. And I found it very fitting that this year's theme for GenCon was bring out your inner gamer. I think literally everyone has a little bit of gamer that lives inside of them. And my buddy Don here has really just hit the nail on the head when he says that the key why you think you're not a gamer is you just haven't found the game that you're supposed to play yet.
And they are all gnomes. All your little gamers are gnomes.
I think so.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Stop.
So that was though she only got to go on Saturday. That was probably the most memorable moment for me. I spent all of Wednesday down there and Thursday and all that whole ordeal. But I really just there's something special, and I'm sure Don and Josh and all these guys who have significant others or wives or whatever, that there's just something special about taking your wife or your whatever down there and watching a connection that was previously wasn't established, watching that connection grow, and it's like a little flower growing in your heart when Gen Con's over and she looks at you and goes, I'm taking all 4 days off next year and we're going to Gen Con.
Yes.
So you just do you just do the physical chalk one up for the good guys because we've just saved another one. We've just saved another one from the cubicalism.
Yes.
That's right. And if I'm not mistaken, going back to our previous conversation, she what achievement did she pass at Gen Con this year?
Connecting back to what we were talking about, she bought her first set of dice.
Yeah.
So
at Gen Con 2011.
So at this point, there is no excuse.
That's right.
She has her dice. I can help her make characters. It's just a matter of time now.
Personal character maker.
Yes.
I'm hoping everyone can hear the random laugh that wasn't there before.
There she is.
Well, I'd like to diverge topics a little bit and ask Demery, where in the world did that gnome comment come from? You went way above my head.
No,
with
he
that
was
one.
talking about this is bring out your inner gamer. All of our inner gamers are gnomes.
Because gnomes are very curious. They're very, I don't know how to describe. They're
They're
fun.
always
they're
blowing
sprightly,
crap up, too.
And they're always blowing crap up. Exactly. They never behave really. They sort of act like it, and then they go off. And do
Okay,
random
so
stuff.
this wasn't an inside joke or anything. This was just going based on the description of gnomes.
Yeah, that, and it's funny because every time that Don and Mike play Drow in any of our games or whatever, they swear that everything's been made by gnomes.
Yes.
So
It's because it has.
Anything that blows up that I didn't blow up was made by gnomes.
That's right. That's
Amen.
right.
Clearly.
I have a second favorite Gen Con moment, except it was post Gen Con. Does it count?
Just this once.
Okay.
was
Because
it Sunday?
It was Sunday.
Then it's still Gen Con.
Yes.
Dev is like cringing on thinking, does it count?
Does it still count?
Oh, no.
This was fantastic. So we got home from Gen Con, and we were just hanging out, and the young woman who was taking care of our dogs while we were gone, she was asking about Gen Con, and I was telling her how I fell in love with steampunk costumes at Gen Con. I was mesmerized buy like these 3 booths that had steampunk outfits, and I really want to get a steampunk costume. Thank you, sweetheart, for putting that in the budget. Anyway, and I loved it. And so she was like, steampunk? She's like, you? And she was at first like really thrown off by it. And so she starts getting on the web and she starts searching for images. Next thing I know, she is going crazy with all of this stuff. And she's like, I've got to go to GenCon next year and wear some of these outfits. She's like, this is fantastic. So we spent like 2 hours after GenCon talking about costumes for GenCon 2012. So that was another awesome moment.
So as our now current resident expert on the steampunkism, Deb, do you happen to know about the steampunk world?
I do know a little bit about it. I'm trying to learn more. It's based off of kind of the Jules Verne time period. And the idea is that it's
the Victorian era.
Yeah, the Victorian era, right? And it's, which I loved anyway. But it takes more of a fantasy, almost a sci-fi twist in that what if the technology started to develop with steam being the primary
catalyst
or primary power, as opposed to electricity or the more digital kind of things that actually have progressed in history. So it's almost like an alternate history. So it's sort of like our world, but also not. It's a little more edgy. I love the style because it's Victorian, but it's got this kind of rebel almost look a little bit to it, and
heavy leather and bronze.
Exactly, it's right up Ziri's alley.
Lots of gears and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So,
well,
but I want to learn more.
I do have to say that Deb has passed her test of steampunk, so she can actually wear her costume now. I won't make fun of her if she's wearing a costume and doesn't understand what it means.
I'm dancing in place. I passed the test.
There you go.
So here we go. With all of the changes that are happening, not only in just the skyline of downtown and here in Indianapolis, with GenCon as a whole, what really was the expectation of coming to GenCon this year? I know coming off the heels of last year, there was a lot of things that were unorganized, and a lot of comments were left with the directors and stuff at GenCon. So there was a lot of people that had a lot of expectations coming in. And I'm sure that as an experienced group of gamers, I'm sure that we weren't left out on that at all as far as what we really expected. So I'm going to start right across the room here with the Demarese, and I'm going to start with Josh. Josh, what did you expect from GenCon?
You know, I wasn't really sure how far to go with the convention center thing. I didn't know like what they were going to do, where they were going to move things. You know, I just thought that they were going to finally expand onto it and maybe move the rooms around a little bit. But apparently they did do just that. So they lived up to that expectations because they moved the entire main convention hall to the new area, which I think was really smart because there's a lot of walking room in there. People can move around. I mean, yeah, I think there are questions and concerns about every year, but this year expecting more involvement from the hotels. I think we saw a similar involvement, but apparently there was a considerable increase in the amount of events because I guess there were some more venues that were available to play those events in. It was really neat for us because we stayed at a different hotel than we'd stayed at before, a slight bit away from the convention hall. But because of where we stayed, we had a very short walk back to the convention center because they had moved the main exhibit hall. So it was nice for us. Most of our games were like in the Crown Plaza and near that area. So that was considerable. The only thing I think everyone that you hear about that went to the con this year will complain about is the will call line. Because I think they were trying to improve the registration situation, registration for if you ordered ahead of time or if you were there to buy. The line to buy a new ticket was considerably less than the past years. However, the will call line was considerably longer than it was over the last few years.
I actually don't think I ever saw anybody in the register line,
which was amazing.
So, do you think that has to do with possibly more people saw the effects of last year, and then they said, you know what, I'm not standing in that huge line that was the registration line. I'm going to pre-register this year.
I'm going to make a new seriously long line.
That would not surprise me at all. That's why I still will stand. I live in Indianapolis. It's so easy for me to will call. I'm still going to pay for the shipping to have it here because I don't want to stand in line at all.
Yeah.
I won't do that again.
I back up. Yeah, 100%. No way.
So, Deb, did GenCon really, really for 4 days to just dedicate 4 days of your life and 4 days of really not really having to pay a whole lot of attention to your husband, but being able to just immerse yourself in gaming. Did GenCon really just live up to the expectations that you had held up for it?
Yes, it did. Overall, 97%. There's my geek moment. I'll tell you what the 3% is here in a second. 97% of it, abso-freaking-lutely. I had a blast. I loved that I was doing something with my husband and with my friends, but it wasn't something where I was, forgive the term, trapped in doing only one thing. It could be fluid. We could be spending time together here, and then we'll each go and do our own thing, and we'll meet back again. There was enough independence, but there was enough interdependence that I had a fantastic time. I did what I wanted to do. I did stuff with friends. The only thing I would have changed, if I could change one thing, and it just didn't work out scheduling-wise, is I would have played Werewolf. I'm a little ashamed to admit that I did not play Werewolf at Gen Con this year. And I'm hanging my head a little in shame. But next year, if I could get in 2 or 3 games of Werewolf, yes, I am the werewolf. Thank you. No, wait a minute. You all didn't play Werewolf either. Now, hold on just a darn minute.
That's too bad we voted.
Got it. You did? Okay. Anyway, so if I could change that a little bit next year, but other than that, I had an absolute blast. I wish it was the best 5 days in gaming, because it was great.
Derek, how about you? What were your expectations? I know you said this is kind of your love-hate time. Was it really worth all of the hate to get to that love part?
Disgusted sigh.
Wow, that's just dirty.
I don't pull my punches here in Indiana.
Yeah, seriously. Yes and no. I have to say that the highlights, of course, were my usual my campaign, my Gen Con campaign, and the Wednesday night games and that sort of thing. But I had major disappointments with my module. The games I was running for that, where like 2 or 3 people or 0 people showed for that, and so those not getting kicked off. It was also very empty in the Crown Plaza in those rooms. If there was one thing I could change, if I would, about game placement at the next Gen Con is to put the RPGs back into the convention center and not have us be like on the hinterlands of the convention. That would be something that I would really appreciate.
Donald, in your 12 seconds of Gen Con, I guess you must be an instant gratification kind of man.
That's right.
Ooh.
That's right.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Hey, now.
Hey, be careful.
Hey, have a baby and enjoy his con too.
And get physical with dice.
Yeah, get physical
That's
with dice. That's right.
Well, I'll just excuse myself then.
I would say in the time that I had to experience Gen Con, it definitely lived up to my expectations because I wasn't even expecting to be there. So in a year at Gen Con is, another good year. There were a lot of really awesome things that I experienced. Actually, walking around the exhibit hall for 2 hours, at least the portion of the exhibit hall that I got a chance to see, I actually intimately talked to more vendors there this year than I ever have, which is just really kind of funny to me that I only spent 2 hours in there and I had a conversation with like 5 or 6. I had a conversation with somebody at Green Ronin. I had a conversation with somebody, my friend in Authors Avenue, Slugfest Games, and there was a gentleman there. His name is Raymond. He was exhibiting some airbrush paint for models and things like that. And I had a very long, intimate conversation about airbrush guns because for those of you who know us and who have gotten a chance to go to Gen Con, I try and dress up as a drow at least one day during the year. Unfortunately, not this year because I only was there for one day. So it is definitely not easy to put that kind of makeup on. But it was really nice to be able to sit down and have a conversation with somebody about, all kinds of different stuff, and not feel like I was only going to be in there for 2 hours. To feel like I'm in a familiar place and I can relax. And I think it lived up to every bit of my expectations. Obviously, I would have loved to have been there a little bit earlier, but because we had commitments in the morning and stuff like that, we weren't able to get there right at 10 o'clock when the exhibit hall opened. But for the time that I was there, I loved every bit of it. So,
Jeremy.
It's still worth going to. Costumes significantly
I can't
better.
put it much better than that.
no joke.
Amen.
From last year, anyways, the costumes seem to be better. There's more people dressed up in the quality. Quality's always been good, but overall, the average of quality has been consistent. I gotta hang out with the Doctor Who guys for a little bit.
Yes.
I actually got a picture of that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't exist.
I'm looking at it right now.
I don't know what these people are talking about. But
Liars, they're all
in
liars.
general, the events were good. The exhibit hall was good, ginormous. It took a couple days to get through it. So yeah, it's definitely worth going to.
Tony?
For me, well, I don't know. The new hall seemed more confusing than it had been in the last couple of years because of just the way it was laid out. Being that it was a different design of the hall, so being in there a couple of days, the first day definitely felt a lot more confusing, trying to figure out where things were and how they laid things out. And but it was really nice to, like Josh had said, network with the various companies and talk to people a lot more intimately than I normally would have. So, yeah, it lived up to my expectations.
Excellent. I'm just going to kind of agree with Jeremy. I mean, it's still worth going to, and I'm still going to spend my money next year to go.
That's right.
And like I touched on earlier, there literally could have been 7 people there, and they could have all been playing games in Japanese that I don't understand. But the fact that I got to share this with my wife at her first GenCon makes it worth all of that. So it absolutely lived up to my expectations, and I just there's really nothing else I can do to beat that. There will never be the first GenCon ever again with my wife, and so I'm just ecstatic that it was such a hit, that I enjoyed it, and that she enjoyed it, because I don't think anything would have been more devastating than to watch her get there and go, you know what? I think all this gaming stuff is for the birds, because that would have really probably broke my heart. That would have been a little rough. Jeremy, you got something to throw on the end there?
Well, since we're all very much for going to Gen Con, I'd like to give them a little constructive criticism and say there needs to be more PC games or console games there.
Interesting.
At one time they had a good following of computer games and PC games and stuff
2
like
years
that.
ago?
Yeah, they brought out Dante's Inferno. There was a huge booth with that, and Wizards did a few things when they were bringing out Magic the Gathering online.
And
They had a room full of console gaming.
I totally missed that.
Ooh.
Yeah, they had it was actually a pretty large room, full of computers that you guys can that anybody could have played at. So.
I never saw it.
They also
I believe
have,
him, but
They also had in one of the side hallways, actually the hallway that led almost directly into the middle doors of the exhibit hall, there was a little setup with like 3 or 4 Xboxes and 3 or 4 PS3s, and they were playing Magic the Gathering on the arcade mode. There was like 12 or 14 people sitting over there when I walked in. Yeah.
Okay, they need to work on advertising.
There you go.
There you are.
But
I know. Go ahead, Derek.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that, Jeremy, you failed your perception check.
Yeah, I was thinking that afterwards. I was like, maybe I should just get off my butt and look for it.
Oh.
Yeah, seriously.
Wow.
I know. With everything being new down there, I'm sure that as GenCon progresses all the way through what we have the contract all the way through 2015,
So far.
as they progress through, and I don't anticipate it going anywhere, but as they progress through towards that date, it's just going to become more smooth, more routine. We'll get the feel of where everything is. I mean, it literally took me 3 days to figure out where the Pathfinder Society room was, because it was like hidden upstairs. And
Yeah.
I mean, unless you had like, someone with an amazing search check to find that sucker, you weren't going to get there.
Yeah, but once you saw it, you were very clear on which one it was.
Oh,
'cause they were
absolutely. But I
Yeah,
just
there were
think-
lines out around the corner and down the stairs. It was weird.
So
Yeah.
it's just
awesome.
it's one of those things that I'm sure that as experienced gamers as we are and as prepared as some of us like to be, I'm sure next year it's going to be, man, I found my way around 1,000 times a lot easier than I did last year. So I know some of us have covered things that we'd like to see changed for next year. Real quickly, we don't have a whole lot of time left in the show this evening, but we're just going to shoot around the table and just if you could call the guy who is making changes for Gen Con next year and give him one piece of advice, what would it be? Donald.
I would say, obviously, for me, going on Sunday and only available on Sunday, it would be really nice if we could figure out some sort of locale or multiple locales for badge and event registration. Because I feel like I feel like a lot of people who complain about having to wait in line for such an extended amount of time. I mean, had I gotten through the line half an hour earlier, I'd have had 2.5 hours.
It's big.
So it is, and especially if you only have one day to enjoy it. I think that if they had multiple locations, the convention center is huge now. So there's no reason why they can't use that space adequately. Find another location, even if it's just a few booths for just general, badge registration and stuff like that. Even if they just broke that off, or even if they just broke off will call a little bit and added another booth, it would be so much easier. And another big thing about the registration hall, from the new construction to the old style, from the old style or old side, of the convention center, the hallway is like 3 times the size in the new area. I'm like, seriously, if you guys stuck a registration booth over here, people would not feel as cramped and as jammed into that little hallway as they do if you're on the older side, which is on Maryland Street. So,
I think just hitting on that, I think if they, like on the first day, they split it up and they have like two running or whatever,
even
or
if
on
it's just
Sunday.
the first day, or especially there was a ton of families there on Sunday, a ton that they only got to go on Sunday. And so when you're advertising, hey, we're doing a family day, which the family pass changed this year to the better. If anybody got it, it was actually $28 for up to 4 people above the age of 8. Anyone under 8 was free. So, I mean, had I known that, I probably would have had a couple other people come with me. But in previous years, it hasn't been that sweet. And, I mean, it was, very beneficial to get the family pass. But when you're standing in line for a half an hour, 45 minutes to get it, the desire to go into the exhibit hall and check out things does not diminish. But, it starts to get stressful when you're standing around a bunch of people you never met and you're waiting to get to a booth.
With
And
small
they've
children.
and you have a stroller and you got to walk through the cattle line to get there. I mean,
And kids definitely have a time limit.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, especially a 2-year-old.
So, Derek, are you standing strong with wanting to see Gen Con pull the RPG games back into a central place?
Yes, that needs to happen because if you've got like one RPG out in the JW Marriott and then you've got another one in the Crown Plaza, it's just a trek to get from one to the other. So yes, totally. Even if they say, okay, look, we're going to keep it all in the hotels, that's fine. But keep them all in a centralized location because Crown Plaza is sort of kind of out there.
Yeah, actually, to add to that, I'm going to jump in and throw in my constructive criticism here. Maybe just color coding areas. If you want to do RPG stuff, on the map, color code this section RPG area. And exhibit hall here, console gaming here kind of thing. Board games over here. I think something like that would help, identify all of the areas and you'd be able to throw it wherever because just open gaming.
Yeah. I do have to say, though, with all the criticism that we're giving them, the event registration was so smooth this year. that I could not have gotten better.
I absolutely agree, and I'm not necessarily complaining about the time that I was in, because I have spent way more time in the first day I've had to get passes and been in line for 2 hours. So I'm not complaining at all about the time I spent. I just think that it would be because the congestion, when you're dealing with people that have been at the con for, this is going on their 4th day, all they want to do is move from one hall to another hall to another hall to get to their games, have some fun, because a lot of people are getting tired after the 4th day, or at the 4th day. Mm-hmm. And when you have tons of families coming in, and then you got those same gamers moving in and out of that hallway, it would just be a little bit more convenient for everybody if it was an expanded. But I totally agree.
Oh, no, that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about the pre-reg,
I'm sorry.
Online pre-reg events.
Gotcha.
Was far smoother than it has ever been ever.
It was very smooth, but it still came down to a timing thing. You had to be like within the first, as apparently I was, first 100, because I apparently was number 98 to get in queue. Thank you, Derek. You still have to be up in there early to do it, which makes sense. I mean, registration happens early, and you've got to get your things in. But I think it was very smart to set up the line, because they basically set up a digital line online for people, and once you hit submit, you got put in line. And as the line went through, you would either get your event and they put it in your shopping cart, or you didn't, and they wouldn't. So you could come back 4 or 5 hours later and pay for it.
Yeah,
but
totally.
You were reserved.
Yes, there was no server crashes. There were no getting like partial page refreshes like in previous years. It was so smooth this year. So they can improve on. Okay, well maybe you get your top 3 or so, something like that. But as far as the process that they've done, that they've fixed that now, in my opinion. Sorry.
No, you're fine, Derek. For a change for me, again, having done all the networking and talking with all the different booths and so forth, GenCon, I think, needs to work with either AT&T or Verizon or Sprint in this area and get some sort of deal worked out and have free internet for those businesses in there. Because I saw a lot of businesses using their phones, their iPads, their laptops, all these different things to make charges and so forth, because they're already paying for these services, whether they're using the Square Reader or whether they're using Visa Direct or anything along those lines. But they're having to pay extra. They already paid $1,000 for their booth, and now they're having to pay daily access for internet. If they could team up with one of the local cell providers in here to bring in, because I know Verizon's got their 4G network running in here, it'd be plenty enough for those businesses. Yeah, it'd be nice if we as customers could have it, but a lot of us aren't there for internet access as it is. But those businesses need it. I think that they really should make that freely available to those businesses through a partnership, not necessarily through the convention center per se, but bring in a big truck that's got a network pipe in it so these guys can have internet in there.
Deb.
Well, the biggest thing I think I noticed that was kind of a snag as we were there, this being my first year, I don't have a lot, but trying to find open gaming areas, because there were several times when we just had an impromptu game, like with Silver Crescent, for example, or another game that we played on Saturday night, and just finding an open area to play just seemed more difficult to me than it should have been. I mean, we're at GenCon. Isn't there a hall or two that's just open to just sit and play? And so, I forget how many times we're all out there, doing our search checks of where are we going to play. And finally, somebody had mercy on us with the Silver Crescent game and gave us a table. And then we just were randomly kind of sitting in a kind of random corner for the game on Saturday night. So to me, I mean, if you're at GenCon, you should be able to have a spot where you can go to just play a random, hey, we feel like playing, let's play. Rather than, well, you're not playing an official Pathfinder game, so you can't play here. And you're not playing an official game over here. So maybe open a hall, heck, even half a hall, and just say, this is free gaming, open gaming whenever you want. I would have appreciated that.
That was AmpGuard, and that was Joel's AmpGuard group that let us use their space.
They were
and
awesome.
Thank you, Joel, very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's actually what I wanted to say. I wanted to make sure we shouted out them because we were there for like 4 hours, and they were just amazing group.
They fed us.
And fed us, yeah.
Yeah, they even gave us food. I mean, high five to them.
See, that's where color coding an area would be open gaming.
I agree.
Joel's AmpGuard group was really nice to us and let us use it.
I think that's actually the Hyatt where the open gaming is.
It's a long way to walk for open gaming.
Yeah, I know, but
I know.
Centralized RPGs.
Preach on, brother.
Well,
Bye-bye.
for me, one of the things, like, it actually ties in a lot of what people were saying is color coding and doing this and that. One of the things I would suggest to Gen Con is to create a just like, even with like the books, they give out the books with all the events in it, but create a two-fold map, or like a two-sided map that you could have, you could fold up and stick in your pocket, that has, like, one side has the like the big boards that was outside the convention hall that had all the booths on it, and then the map on the bottom of it has who's in what booth exhibit. So you have a map of the convention hall, and you flip it over. On the back side, it has the downtown map with the color coding for the various types of gaming, which that would really help simplify, even with like the skywalk maps, so you can know how to get from building to building to building quickly.
That's
Great
really
idea.
what I grab those books for. Is I'll just rip the map page out.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
but
Jeremy,
having
our
a
map
loose
guy.
map, that, or even putting it in the swag bag or something like that,
Yeah.
would be a perfect thing for Gen Con, because then you can have a foldable map that you can put in your stuff
Absolutely.
to make navigating the chaos and huge downtown sector.
I totally agree with that. Just to comment a little bit on what you said, I think you could even make it as fun as like turning it into like a treasure map or something. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you didn't want to make it just so plain Jane, I mean, there are tons of people that go to just a regular mall and they have to look at the map to find where they're going.
Yeah.
There's no reason why a convention center that's going to be more convoluted, there's going to be tons more people, and especially when you have events that spill out over into the hotels and things like that. I mean, the event book is very good at being able to spell out where things are located, as far as, you know,
What
it's
room
in you know, yeah, exactly, what room it's going to be in, what ballroom it's going to be in. But I think that for a lot of people who need a visual aid, it would be really nice to have that kind of a visual aid.
And especially the convention hall with the new
Exactly. And,
chaos that
yeah,
it is.
because it's three. For those of you who did not get a chance to see it, it is 3 floors
Yeah.
of convention center. Now I don't know if there was anything on the second or third floor, but I'm just saying I can imagine when, you know, more events come in, and if they add more gaming areas and stuff like that, there is like tons of
know
space.
there was a third
Yeah,
floor.
there's a third. If you look at where the skywalk is for the second floor, just above it and over probably about 50 feet, there's a third one. Yeah.
There
It's
is
huge.
actually a scavenger hunt every year. So I mean, you can team up with them and add that to the map. I mean,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
so
My advice, if I could talk as the host of our little podcast,
No.
to no one likes you. Remember that.
I ran away.
So, as my advice to Gen Con is be ready. You have a contract with us till 2015. Your show's going to go on, and as proven by the numbers this year, you know, we have provided them with an excellent convention center with ample space, and you know, I know as a gamer, open space does not always translate into the easiest gaming area, but we have provided them with all of the avenues to exploit that convention center. So my advice for them is just start early, plan often, and look back and take the advice of the people who attend every year, because it's those people that attend every year, like we have just said, you know, there's 6 of us or whatever around this table that are going to go next year, and badge prices aren't going to be getting any cheaper. So we're obviously willing to make that investment. So as a company, just be ready. You know, the lines are going to just do nothing but continue to grow, because if you know, Josh, you quoted those numbers earlier, there was a 20% increase between last year and this year. I do not see that number going down between this year and next year, because all it's going to do is people are going to go home and go, man, you really missed it. You need to go next year. So
Like your wife.
exactly like my wife. It's just that's all I have to say. It's just my advice to them is just be ready for us next year. Don, what do you feel on that?
Just a real quick spin off of what you had to say. I think that something that it sounds like what would be helpful for guys like Derek and people who like to run games and set things up. An early registration would be great, because typically I could see Derek saying, well, I'm obviously going to be here next year at GenCon. I'm going to be running games. It would be great if I could register now and get an early registration in now, a year in advance, so that if there are a ton of early registrations, you're not stuck in a situation like what we talked about in the last show, where you have to try and look at last year's GenCon booklet to try and figure out what events you're going to try and register for. I would think that would be a very good way to prepare yourself for the upcoming event, is to maybe have some sort of pre-registration for events.
The only issue I see with that, and we're wrapping up here, but the only issue I see with that is you'll have a lot of people that will jump in to run one game so they could pre-register for all their events.
That's true.
So you could very easily turn 8,000 events to 16,000 events, but then you're trying to find room to put everybody. And then that next year we're going to be complaining that we sat in ballrooms with 12 gaming groups and it was loud and we couldn't hear anything. And so we have to be very mindful about that stuff. But I'd like to thank everyone for listening this evening as we wrap up episode 2 with Darth Maul. And I think our established fact we have drummed out of this show this evening is let the good times roll from your hands.
Oh, nice.